So to choose my research topic, I decided that I wanted to take the two books I thought I could write the most about, which were 1984 and Clockwork Orange. And I began by comparing the two main characters and what I knew about them and what I didn't. So a few of the things I knew about the two main characters were that both Alex and Winston were technically treated by the government. Alex had the Ludovicos treatment, and Winston went through torture in room 101. And so from this information, I asked, at what point is government intervention too much, especially to the point in which civilians aren't really human anymore? Because education and discipline, they are a good thing, but there's always an extreme where it can be taken too far. And for my second point, I knew that Winston was an adult character while Alex was a teenager who pretty much did whatever he wanted. He didn't really have structure in his life. He didn't go to school. And so I asked, how does age influence the ability of a character and their relationship with the government? My third question was, Big Brother is a very prominent power, while the government in Clockwork Orange is vaguely described. So how does more knowledge of the government make it friendlier or more likely to be trusted? And another point is 1984 and Clockwork Orange both demonstrate a breakdown of family relations. Winston describes how children spy on their parents while Alex disrespects his. So a lot of, and this is where I decided to focus my topic on, as you can see at the bottom, because I felt like trust and relationships in society are really like the foundation. And so I figured that this is a dystopian society. So how do those like broken down family relations impact the society in the story? So that's where I decided to focus, and that's where I got my research question from. But I had one more point. In 1984 has an influential female character, Julia, and while Clockwork Orange does not. How would Alex be different if he had a female counterpart? How would Winston be different if he didn't? So, comments? Basically, through all of these questions, I just decided which one I thought I could write the most about, which one I thought was the most important. And because I've had such a strong foundation in my family, you know, to support me in my daily life, I felt that this is what I wanted to write about. So, how important is the family unit to the success of a society? And how has the degradation of the familial relationship emphasized the issues of dystopian society? And how could these issues affect our world today?
So are you suggesting that because their families, because of the poor family values, that contributes to their behavior?
Yeah, I believe so. I think that like a strong family life and a strong influence from your parents really helps you be successful in the future, because they've had so many more years on you that they just, they have more advice, even though we don't really like to admit it. And so I feel that, like, when the trust between people, especially like between parents and their children, it has been broken, especially by like an entity like the government, that means that they're basically breaking apart what binds people together. And so it's just innate in a dystopian society that like people are being pulled apart, and with the government doing that, it's just not really, as you can tell in the stories, they're dystopian and the characters do a lot of bad things.
I would like to offer a supporting point to your topic.
Alright.
Okay, so we know that Alex goes to classes, but he doesn't pay attention to them, and his parents don't really have any influence in that. I know my own dad said that when he was growing up, his parents did not care. He was a high school dropout, and he thought that his life was just going to be... And so now that he has his own child, he's pushing me harder. So how would Alex be different if his parents had pushed him into education harder?
That's a good point. Sorry, I'm going to write it down first. I mean, I feel like that also kind of plays into at what point is education too much? Because if you're voluntarily receiving that education and bettering yourself for it, you're more likely to become a better person and do better things than if you had it forced upon you. And just by having something forced upon you, you immediately have that I don't want to do it attitude.
Isn't that not what we're doing right now? It is against the law to not be in school if you're a minor, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean that we might be starting to form into a dystopian society because that education is being forced upon us?
It's possible. I mean, I feel like a lot of us do. I mean, especially in this class, a lot of us try to take advantage of our education and use it to better ourselves. Because at this point, education, good grades, GPA, SAT scores is probably one of the most important things in our lives. And it dictates whether we can get into college. And I've written like essays about it. And we should want to learn. We shouldn't have to have laws that dictate that we're supposed to be in school, but some people don't want that.
Well, if they're not in school, they're gonna be out in the streets and homeless.
Well, not everyone would be homeless, they just wouldn't.
But there will be a higher proportion because they don't have educated and they wouldn't have better jobs.
I mean, there are places in society for people who don't have a higher education. I mean, I worked at a grocery store for half a year, and a lot of those people didn't graduate out of high school. So, I mean, society is built on, there are certain people that have a lot of power, and then everyone else just, they find a job, they try to do their best, and well, not everyone does, but this what it's supposed to be, there's a balance of power.
And why do you think the government will tend to break the families in these dystopian societies?
I'm not exactly sure why the government thought that it was their place to break the familial relationships, but I feel like it's just happened as a result of the dystopian society. As the government became more and more involved in the lives of their citizens, they just ended up. Well, another thing is that it's dystopian, so there's a lot of the survival, every man for himself, especially. I mean, in 1984, it was if you were caught, you're gone, and so you don't want to be caught with someone else that was just killed. So, I think Anna was first.
Just to kind of add to what you were saying before about schooling, there's a lot of successful people who are successful and they didn't go to college and they didn't do, because they started their own entrepreneurial thing. So I think if you go that route, then schooling may not be as as important as if you were to go more traditional.
That's true. I just feel like education gives you the best opportunity for success. I mean, that's the way that most of us are taking it, is that we're going to try our best in school to get a good job. But then, I mean, there are some people who just have that strive to do something in society, like those big companies like Apple and Microsoft. So it is possible, but in a dystopian society where there's kind of not really a lot of free thought and action, I don't think it would be as possible. I think Lexi was.
In response to Michael's question, I feel that was why does the government would they want to break this familial bond?
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of talk about how if people are completely alienated from one another, it makes the government easier to trust, or makes you want to trust in the government more.
It makes people easier to control.
It makes them easier to control because the state becomes all that they have. Rather than relying on their family, they rely on the state.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
I think
Megan, sorry.
In a similar vein, does Big Brother, since it's a familial term, does that technically replace the family rather than break the familial bonds?
Well, I feel like Big Brother, it doesn't necessarily replace it because it is like an entity that you can hold on to, but it doesn't take the same, like, they're trying to make it seem like you love Big Brother, like he loves you, that he cares for you. But most of the people, I don't think, really received that love. And, I mean, if they did, I mean, it's hard to know because I wasn't in the story, but it is a good point that, you know, Big Brother, it has a familiar term. It does take the role of it, but I don't think it has quite the extent of a real family relationship.
Do you think that ability to communicate with people and, you know, networking and being a good communicator is more important than having a degree to be able to be successful, especially in a totalitarian government? What do you think about, do you think if Alex was a nicer person that he would have a better chance at success versus if he was just better in school?
I feel like by being able to communicate with people, you can make those connections, and by having those connections, you can work up the system, especially in a totalitarian society. A lot of those, you know, knowing people helps get you better jobs. That's what Leo did in Child 44. He helped his parents get a better apartment. So having those connections, I do and think in this case is a little more important than a good education, because when you have those connections, it makes you stand out from all the other people that were, you know, did well in school. I mean, it's kind of the same case today, but in a dystopian society, it's a little more prominent.
Of all the characteristics of a dystopian society, which characteristic do you think contributes most to the breakdown of the family?
Well, I think from like what you guys have asked me about the most is why the government wants to take the place of the family, kind of, to break those relationships and the trust between people. And I mean, in my personal opinion, I believe that a lot of the people, they've just lost trust in others. Like, they don't have the strong friendships that we have. They don't have, you know, the close bond to their parents. And that broken trust, the fact that they're trying to break relationships between people and have it re-emphasized towards the government, that's what makes society seem so different from ours. Oh, Coleman?
Sorry. I was going to say that with the question of how influential is a family unit in society, I think an additional question you could ask with regards to that would be, is it always a good thing? Or rather, is it better for the family to influence the child and help develop the child, or is it better for the child to develop on their own and form their own unique character? Because with Leo, we see examples of his parents trying to convince him to condemn Riza, try to get rid of one of the most important characters in the story. And you also have Alex's parents who are trying to help him and try to do what they can for him. But Alex, by the end of the book, begins to change his ways and pictures himself as a father, as someone who's mature and doesn't indulge in these activities.
I mean, the only response I can really say to that without having more support, and I'm just kind of speaking, is I think in everything, too much is bad. So if there's, I mean, when your parents focus on you too much, like that can always be taken to extreme. That's not good. But I mean, I think that, you know, that's how society has been, and it's succeeded. I mean, clearly you've seen how we came from like the Stone Ages to now. So I do believe that the family is an important unit, and it does help raise children, raise them right. Well, I mean, hopefully. But there's a point where the family needs to take a step back and you become your independent person. But you really, I mean, that's where you start, is with your family.